We don't have to choose between growth and equity. We can have both. And we don't have to accept a city that works for some. We can build a city that works for everyone, all of us here and beyond. As we kick off this campaign, I'm asking for your support, your ideas, and your energy. Let's build a Berkeley that reflects our highest values, not just in words, but in actions. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right, with that, any questions? This is your, all right. Go ahead, thank you.
Hi, Moni. My name is Phil Allen. I live on San Pablo Avenue. My question right off as I'm listening to your address is, if elected, will you provide, will you welcome any of us to your office and speak to us? Will we have access to you? In other words, as the president, as the incumbent does not have, does not seem to have, offer access to everybody. That's my question.
Thank you, Phil, for asking that question. I hear your frustration. It's been one of mine as well. And thank you for asking an easy question for me. Yes, 100% yes. Part of my campaign is knocking on doors in our district to find out what people really care about, and not just to advance my own ideas, right? I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn, and we only get good policies and good implementation when we can leverage the intelligence, the experience of the people around us. Berkeley is a center for learning, education, for working professionals who work in so many different fields. We have so much that we can do with these resources, and we can do better. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
I have a couple of unrelated questions. The first one is, one of the real strains I see in Berkeley is its tax base. We want to do more things than we have the money to do. What's your approach going to be toward getting a financial balance back in the city that actually works? The second unrelated question, but more encapsulated, is what's your vision of the development of the Gilman, the Hopkins corridor?
Thank you, Marty.
What Gilman Hopkins corridor development? That's the question. Do you mean the bike tracks or?
Okay, Moni phrased it, shows a phrase which I found very relevant. How do we have both? Mm-hmm. There's a sort of a battle going on between whether the area, specifically in front of things like the Monterey Market and the blocks up there, are going to be more hospitable for cars or more hospitable for bicycles.
Right.
So that's certainly an issue that I'd like to hear her position on. Is that specific enough?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So I'll answer your first question first. Berkeley is having a budget crisis, right? We're have a deficit this year. That deficit is going to double next year. The city manager has asked for cuts across the board, and they were necessary to close the budget. However, in the future, I think we can do better than blanket cuts across the board. We can have more nuance on what we need and what we can do without. Margot talked earlier before we started about not letting perfect be the enemy of the good, not wasting resources to chase perfection, but being able to acknowledge what we need and focusing our energy there. Kate we first started talking, talked about a concept of the concept of zero-based budgeting, right? Where we don't just take last year's budget and expand it forward, where we actually take a look and start building the budget around our needs and our priorities. So that, I think, is an essential exercise that we need to take. And also, I think we need to look at more progressive sources of funding. And I can't wait to tell you more as we develop them. I have some ideas, and hopefully in subsequent gatherings, we'll be able to develop them further. And I'm always happy to hear from this group here, from our constituents, from people in Berkeley, and how we can do that better. So your second question was about the
Gilman corridor.
the Hopkins corridor bike tracks. Okay. So part of the problem here is, or I should say, part of the reason why I felt a pull towards running is because of how I'm seeing the city council change. When I came to Berkeley, I found a city council that was, if not perfect, responsive to the needs of constituents. Recently, I'm not so sure. We do have really strong lobbies for with a certain vision. And I think that we need to work with the lobby, but also listen to our constituents. And that's something that I've been doing. I think there are certain drawbacks to the cycle track on Hopkins, which is a major corridor. I've heard that it's not ideal for waste collection. That's not going to work. We also have to acknowledge who lives there. There are many elders and elders who require many services. How are they going to get to them? I'm a parent, and I have a child who plays soccer, sometimes on King Field, and I see many grandparents attending these soccer games, and I wonder, how are they going to get there? So I also want to say that I'm a biker, and I've been biking for years before I even came to Berkeley, and for the last 20 years in the Bay Area, the last 16 years in Berkeley. And I pay attention to places that have done it well. One of those places is Davis. They have cycle tracks. The cycle tracks are around the center, but not through the center. And that doesn't mean that you can't bike through. Kate and many others have proposed an ADA bypass. That is an option, particularly as we're talking about young children who are going to need to access schools that are not on Hopkins, but on Rose, right? I think Rose is a safer street to be biking on than Hopkins, which is a street that I do bike on, by the way. And I will say the scariest part of that for me, coming from West Berkeley, is the split between Rose and Hopkins. But I know that there are other kind of rough parts as well. And I will say that my child, when she was 7, actually did the full ride. We have listened to the people who are bikers who want this, and we are also bikers who can see that we can compromise and we can work together and we can sit at the table and figure out something that may not be perfect, but good.
All right, another question.
I'm a talker, I'm sorry guys.
Sounds good.
I didn't hear an answer.
I think Clifford here.
Oh, hi.
Take the mic.
Clifford Fred. I've lived in Berkeley since 1974 and across the street on the other side of Gilman on Peralta since 1978. Anyway, I'm concerned that the city council feels and the city government feels that they don't have to follow citizen-approved initiatives. I'll mention 3 and focus on one and ask Moni what her thoughts are. There was a neighborhood commercial preservation ordinance, Measure V, passed in 1982, that has relevance to all the various commercial upzoning, Solano, North Shaddix, and Pablo and Elmwood. I've brought this up to the council several times. They've ignored it. There's the Public Agency Accountability Act, Measure N, that Mayor Lonnie Hancock put on the ballot in November 1988, that said the city should use all available lawful means to get the university and other public agencies to abide by city laws, and the council has not only ignored that, but has just sort of looked the other way as the university approves and builds one 20-plus story dorm project after the next. And then there's Measure L, the Berkeley Public Parks and Open Space Ordinance, an initiative that was adopted in November 1986. I was one of the signers of that initiative 40 years ago. By my reading of it, both the Ohlone Greenway project and the Big Ferry project violate Measure L. This Measure L says that before you can convert parks and open space to non-recreational uses, you have to put it on the ballot for voter approval. The city of Berkeley did that exact thing in 1996 when they wanted to use Provo Civic Center Park for temporary offices while the Civic Center building on Millview was upzoned. They put it on the ballot and it lost, and they had to do other things. I've brought this to the attention of the city for the last 2 years. They're ignoring me. Both the Ohlone Greenway project and the ferry project are specifically and defined as transportation, not recreation. The Ohlone Greenway project is specifically transportation to and from BART to the city limit. It would be removing open space from Cedar Rose Park and destroying the 25-year-old native plant park between Peralta and Gilman to expand the bicycle scooter roadway. The ferry project specifically for transportation to get commuters from Berkeley to
I have to ask you to get to the question.
Are you prepared to enforce Measure L and to compel the city to stop work on both of these projects unless or until they are put before the voters for approval as required by Measure L?
Thank you, Clifford. First of all, I want to acknowledge the breadth of knowledge on our city's history, which we need more of on the city council. What you're describing is the crisis of representation that we're seeing on the city council. And I need to learn more about Measure L. That was before my time here in Berkeley. I want to learn more about it. I want to work with you on it. But I absolutely agree with you about the fundamental desire to see the city council listen to its constituents and address our concerns. They represent us, and we need to see more of that in the city's proposals and in their decisions.
I think she had a question here.
Yes,
Can I pass this to
in
you?
addition to.
Here, wait, here, take the mic,
Hi. In addition to problems with, parking on the Gilman and Hopkins, there's, the way that they have done, the bike, lanes at Hopkins and the Alameda makes it very difficult for the buses to stop, at the bus stop. And since many of us in Berkeley are older people that rely on the bus, would you make sure that that was handled so that the buses do not have to like stop in the middle of the street? Yeah, you're saying yes. Okay. Secondly, we could have a lot more property tax in Berkeley, obviously, if the commercial buildings paid present value property tax instead of benefiting from 13. Are you willing to work with the Tom Steyer and the other people in Sacramento to change that part of the Constitution to make it a dual track property tax, whatever it is.
Yeah, split roll. Split, yeah, that's right. Yes. And I would like to see Disney pay their fair share, even if they're not in Berkeley.
Go ahead, say that in the microphone.
That was the big example, right? That Disney.
Say that in the microphone.
Disneyland is paying taxes based on their 1978 base rate. So yes to working on this. Yes to commercial businesses like Disney and the ones that we have here paying more of their fair share in taxes. That's part of the idea of progressive taxation.
One last question.
Number one, I don't know if you've ever been to Cesar Chavez Park, but it is the... What?
Si se puede park.
Si se puede Park, baby, or we are... The new name has not been chosen. But on that issue, it is the largest piece of open space that we have in Berkeley. It's a beloved and very regional park. It brings people from all over to look at the park, to participate in the park, and to be by the bay. I just want to invite you to come and visit. We'll be happy to show you around. And have you been there?
Oh yes, I live on the west side of Berkeley, so it's one of our favorite places to go and watch the sunset.
So that's what
Thank
we want you to be able to value the park.
Absolutely.
One final question. I saw a hand from George. I'm going to give him the microphone and make sure it's on. Here you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Moni. I have a non-development related question. It's about the police.
Okay.
So another thing that has gone by the wayside is police accountability, police oversight, and reimagining public safety. That's a long conversation, but what I want to ask you is, in that whole complex of issues, and I know you talked about public safety and that there are other ways to achieve it besides more and more police and more toys for the police. But can you give one or two examples of things that you think would be helpful specifically around reducing civil unrest or antisocial behavior, unsocial behavior that do not involve, or mental health for that matter, community issues that do not involve sending out armed police, and things that you'd like to see change in that regard?
By civil unrest, do you mean protest?
Well, I mean more like crime.
Oh, okay. I'm all for protests and representation.
We don't want to reduce that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned one of them, right? We need mental health services. I really appreciate the work of community organizations. One of them is Live Free, they work with communities to reduce crime, homicide. They are community actors, and they have a sort of, they actually work with the police and the community, but the information is unidirectional, right? So that the community can trust them and know that they're not going to report them to the police, but that the police can share information about what they know, right? And where to engage. Right? And so you have these community groups that go into the community and work with the youth and with people who could otherwise be doing other things, right? So I think that that's a really great example, and we need to work off of that. We need to build off of that. That's a really beautiful thing that they're doing. And we have the data that shows that it's actually reduced crime. Our crime rate is lower in Berkeley because of this.
Thank you, everybody. The next city council member for District 1, Moni G. Please give her another round of applause. Yes. And Phil, I want to sort of emphasize something that you said, which is the need for representation. The need for a council member who actually listens to their constituents, who has an open door policy to their office. It's very important. The need for democracy is being crushed in so many ways everywhere. And so this is everyone's favorite part. I'm going to ask all of you to become involved in this campaign.